Flags at the White House are at half-staff in remembrance of former Vice President Dick Cheney. Cheney's family says he died Monday night from complications of pneumonia and cardiac and vascular disease. He was 84 years old. Cheney served under President George W. Bush and was considered one of the most powerful vice presidents in U.S. history. He was the architect of the war in Iraq and war on terror following the September 11th attacks and looked to expand the powers of the executive branch. Jared Hill has more.
Following 9/11, Dick Cheney was a prominent player in the war against terrorism.
There is no doubt that Saddam Hussein now has weapons of mass destruction.
That statement helped lay the groundwork for the invasion of Iraq, but it proved to be false. Critics accused Cheney and others in the Bush administration of deliberately deceiving the American public to justify the Iraq war. Cheney blamed bad intelligence and remained an influential advisor to President Bush.
Dick Cheney, a man of great integrity, sound judgment, and experience.
Richard Bruce Cheney had been a player in Washington politics for 30 years when George W. Bush tapped him to be his running mate.
I have been given an opportunity to serve beside a man who has the courage and the vision and the goodness to be a great president, Governor George W. Bush.
Cheney's resume was impressive. Starting as an assistant in the Nixon White House, he served as Gerald Ford's chief of staff. 5 terms as Wyoming's representative in Congress followed. At age 37, he suffered his first heart attack. Cheney's health did not prevent the first President Bush from making him Secretary of Defense. He was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom for his handling of Operation Desert Storm. He suffered 3 more heart attacks before becoming vice president.
In terms of the kinds of activities I can engage in professionally, there are no restrictions.
Cheney was an avid sportsman. While hunting in Texas, the vice president accidentally shot his friend. Harry Whittington survived, but Cheney was criticized for failing to disclose the accident in a timely fashion. After leaving office, Cheney was openly critical of the new Obama administration. He engaged in a public duel with Vice President Joe Biden over how to battle al-Qaeda and try terror suspects. Mr. Cheney defended the use of waterboarding on terror suspects as necessary to protect the nation. In 2010, Cheney suffered more cardiac problems and had a heart transplant 2 years later. Cheney once said his heart issues were always on his mind, but they never seemed to slow the career politician who many consider the most powerful vice president in American history. Jared Hill, CBS News.
Barton Gellman joins us now. He wrote the 2008 book, Angler, the Cheney Vice Presidency. Thank you so much for being here. Cheney and President Bush are as closely linked, really, as any president and vice presidential duo in modern American history. What does that do for Cheney's legacy?
Well, Cheney's legacy is that he was, in his own preferred adjective, he was a very consequential vice president. I would argue more consequential than some presidents have been. And he was that in partly because of his own inherent qualities, and in part because Bush, especially in the early years, deferred to him a great deal. George Bush is a guy who was in charge of and wanted to declare big goals. And he did not understand or really care to understand a lot of details about the bureaucracy. Cheney was a rare combination of a zealot on policy with very strong views, perhaps even extreme. A combination of that with someone who had rare gifts for understanding the bureaucracy and operating in it. Normally, the zealots can't find a light switch. When you have a guy who really knows how to work the government and has really strong views, that's a person who moves the needle on history.
How would you compare the Republican Party of today to the Republican Party of Cheney's decades-long career in Washington?
Well, it's a big difference, and Cheney himself saw it as a big difference. He was, at the time of his service in government, perhaps the strongest high-ranking proponent of a unitary executive authority, and he believed strongly that the president had to be free to defend the interests of the country, even if the country didn't agree. He didn't care about public opinion at all, which is unusual for a politician, and he stretched the boundaries of law. But he did not, as the current party does, countenance uh, obvious, direct, clear law breaking, and he certainly never contemplated defying the judgment of a court. He did deeply believe in the Constitution, in his own understanding of it, and he was a patriot. He was not corrupt personally, despite what I've found to be unfair and untrue accusations about Halliburton. And he was, although he was willing to lie for expedience every now and then, he fundamentally was honest about his views and opinions. He was a guy who believed that the public elects a government but doesn't then control it, that it's sort of like choosing a surgeon. You make your choice and then you let him or her decide where to make the cuts.
Well, we could probably fill a whole half hour. I got more questions like the lying for expediency, but we'll have to leave it there. Thank you, Barton Gellman. Appreciate it.